Tonight joining me is a very special guest. Her name is Judith Hughes, and she talks and teaches something called the Crystalline Consciousness Technique. And from what I understand, this is cutting-edge intention work that calls upon light, sound, sacred geometry, and the unifying force of intention to work at the most subtle levels of energy where transformation is said to occur. So stay tuned. This hour is going to be very interesting. She's going to be talking about what this is all about and how it applies to certain programs that she works with it, and how she works with clients, and what it's all about. So welcome, Judith. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Hillary. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much. Well, I also want to tell everybody to stay tuned because Judith has wonderfully offered to give us a sample of this kind of technique at the end of the show. So you want to stay tuned because it's going to be quite interesting. I had the opportunity to talk with Judith earlier today, and she gave me a sample of how this technique works over the phone. Actually, it was quite intriguing. So, Judith, why don't we start with a little bit about your background, and why don't you talk about who you are, where you came from, and how you got into this?
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, I grew up back east, and I was, came to California as a teenager. I spent my young adult life in the wilderness, actually. I was one of those people who tried to get as far away as possible from shrivelization, so I did that for many years, lived on mining claims and swam in the river and just had a good old time and really got in touch with nature. Mm-hmm. And then, had a family and was still able to be out in the country and in the garden and all that. And at a certain point, I decided I wasn't doing my work. I wanted to find out what my service was. So I realized I wanted to do some healing work. So I became a Reiki master, and a few years later, Hello?
Judith, were you always called to work with energy? I mean, how did you know? Was it because you spent so much time outside, or had you always known growing up that, working with healing modalities was something that you wanted to do?
I think as a young girl, I wanted to be a nurse because, that's what young girls want to be, is a nurse or a ballerina, and so nursing was my thing. But Western medicine has just never really called to me, and I honestly think it was nature that called me. I really learned so much just being in the wilderness and having my solitude, and I just absorbed it all. And Reiki was a wonderful, wonderful beginning. I still use Reiki, but I wanted to be more deliberate. I wanted to be able to diagnose and treat specifically. So Chinese medicine called to me at that point, and I became an acupuncturist.
Okay, yeah. You had mentioned that. That's and then how did you get into the crystalline consciousness technique?
Well, I had a friend who came to me all sparkly-eyed one day and said that she had found out about this work. And at that point, I was just finishing up an apprenticeship with Joy Metcalf, who was my Reiki master, and she's a vibrational medicine healer, and she's just a wonderful psychic and intuitive. And I was just finishing up an apprenticeship with her, and my friend said, "Let's go to Montana." And I said, "Ooh, I can't. You go and you tell me about it." So she went, and she came back just all thrilled with this work. And so at the very next opportunity, I went to Montana and I learned.
And so let's get into the heart of it. I mean, what is exactly that crystalline consciousness technique is? What is it, and how do you work with it? Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a big question. What it is hard for me to describe. You described it very well. It calls upon light, sound, sacred geometry, etc. I can say that there are 3 phases, and the first phase is opening, and in that phase, you are brought into a state of receptivity and calmness, and it feels like a homecoming because you're actually your vibration is brought into a resonance with the earth. So it's very relaxing. It's very calming. You feel very safe. You know, no learning, no healing can occur when you're in a hyped up state that, you know, our culture calls normal, which is not, and we're mostly all in some degree of fight or flight or freeze, really. And so opening brings you out of that state into a state of deep relaxation. And then the second phase, we call upon healing chambers. And the healing chambers are just amazing, magical, wonderful, energetic, you know, the platonic solids, working with the cube, with the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the dodecahedron, and the icosahedron in their energetic forms. And my understanding of what these healing chambers do is they act at that point of creation to, first of all, to disassemble, I should say, the energetic structures that do not serve your intentions. And then after your intentions are spoken, the healing chambers work to bring them into reality. So that's phase 2. After phase 2, the intention is spoken or otherwise called upon. And then the third phase is mastery. And in mastery is like an energetic assimilation of what occurred. It works with the core column of light. It clears karma. It just brings things into a state of harmony and balance and completion. And that's essentially what CCT is. How it can be applied, though, is a whole other conversation. It can be applied. You and I had a quick session on the phone, and I'm going to work with whoever wants to receive this later on, so it can be done like that. In my work as an acupuncturist, I will have people on the table and go through phase 1 and phase 2. And at the point of intention, instead of having them speak their intention, I will do the acupuncture as intention. So that makes the acupuncture more powerful.
Yeah, and actually I might want to remind or let listeners know that if you would like to call in tonight, we are taking calls. If you would like to experience your own individual experience with this CCT technique, you're welcome to call in, and we are taking topic-specific questions. So if you have a question that's related to what we're talking about tonight, we'd be happy to answer them. So, Judith, did you discover this technique, or did you learn it? Do you learn it from somebody else? Or where did it begin?
Well, it began when these two amazing women, one of them is named Gia Combs Ramirez, that's G-I-A, and the other woman's Lexi Sundell, and they're neighbors and friends who live in Montana, and they were getting together to teach a Reiki class. And so they got together to meditate, to bring in some information on how to best teach this class. And they were amazed and delighted that this protocol, they describe it, that it just literally fell into their laps. So together, they're meditating together, somehow created a synergistic vibration that this information was able to come through. So that was the beginning. I think that was in 2004.
So was it like channeled work? Is that how it came through? It was like a channel technique?
Yes.
Good. Okay, great.
And so I learned from Gia.
Okay, and so can other people take a training class? You offer training classes to teach this then?
Absolutely. I'm a teacher, and I want to give people my website and also Gia's website, because on Gia's website you can actually give yourself a free mini session, which is cool, but you can also find a practitioner or a teacher near you. You know, because not everybody lives in California like I do.
So why don't you go ahead and give everybody that website information?
Okay, so my website is www.intendhealth, INTEND as in dog, health.com. And Gia's website is ccthealing.com or crystallineconsciousness.com. Those will take you to the same place.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And you can also find that, folks, on my own website. I have a link on my website to Judith's work as well. So you can go to HillaryRaimo.com and you can find Judith's information as well. And again, that's intendhealth.com.
Yes.
And why don't you say Gia's website one more time, Judith?
www.ccthealing.com.
Yeah, this is really new, actually. I mean, I know it's only developed in the last couple of years, but,
yes.
What seems to be so great, happening on the planet today is that people are, opening up to different modalities and experiencing different things. And so these kinds of techniques are being able to come in because I believe there's a real shift in consciousness happening right now. And so as we connect to that shift and we raise our own vibration, we actually open up channels to, other information to come in a channeling-like sense where we're able to use our intuition and, weave it together to create different kinds of healing modalities, which I believe one of the reasons I had you on the show, Judith, is because when I met you in San Francisco at the show, that we were working a show together, it just really called to me in the sense that this was really unique and really different. And, we hear a lot about Reiki and acupuncture and other things, but certain kind of healing modalities like this don't often get too much, exposure. And they really should, because they're really important for people to at least try or experience or, open their minds to understanding. So, we're going to go to a break in a couple minutes, but before we do, so how has this work changed, you in a way? I mean, what's your message with this now that you're working with this? And we'll talk a little bit more about this when we come back from break. And we'll also talk about how you've tied it into some specific healing things like your Optimum Weight Network program and how you do distant acupuncture, which I'm actually really interested to hear how that's possible. So what is your message with this work and how do you carry that on? I mean, what's your calling? Do you want everybody in the world to experience this, or you want the shift? Are you part of what's supposed to be happening? Part of the shift itself?
Wow. How has it changed me? Let me just focus there for a minute. How has it changed me? I have changed so much in the last few years. I've done all kinds of transformational work. I've done rebirthing, I've done Reiki, I've done this, that, the other thing, and it's all been great. But I don't know, maybe you folks can relate to this. Sometimes when you're doing personal transformational work, it's painful, It's like your skin's getting flayed off sometimes, until you break through, and it's always confronting your shadow and all that stuff, And I got to tell you, CCT is not like that. I have found myself looking back and saying, oh my gosh, I used to be like that and I'm not like that anymore, kind of a thing. That kind of transformation where you find yourself in a new and better place and you realize it was just so smooth and easy. And then, you know what? That's the way it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that exploring the shadow, though, is an important aspect of that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Do you agree that exploring the shadow, although it can be painful, is also a really important factor into allowing this kind of work to happen for somebody?
How I explore the shadow is when the shadow arises, I look at it and I say, okay, there's that. Now, what do I want to see? In other words, I can use the shadow or use anything that I perceive as negative in my life, use it as a clue to help me find what I do want. And then I focus and I do CCT on what I do want to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So do you take your clients actually through that process when you work with them in a session?
Well, you mean in an acupuncture session?
Well, in a CCT session, do you actually?
CCT session. I just have a conversation with people about, why they want the session, and sometimes, we get into that stuff. But essentially, what I'm doing is eliciting their intentions. And you know what? People aren't used to that. People, we're all trained to be problem solvers. So we focus on our problems. And that's okay as long as that can help you discover what you do want. And one of the major ways that I find that I have shifted is intention practice is very powerful. You really get to know who you are. And when we're problem solving and when we're just dealing with day-to-day life, we often don't have a chance to even check in and see what we do want. So
it's very true, and actually maybe when we come back from break we can go into that a little bit more deeper, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. And also when we come back from break, maybe we can talk about what a typical session is like when somebody has one. So leading into the break, I think this is it's almost like a ripe time in the world for, people to experience these kinds of things. I know I touched base on that a little bit more, but I don't know. I'm really excited about what you're offering to the world, and I think it's a really positive thing, and I applaud your work and how you've brought it out to the world. So we'll be right back after this break, and we'll talk to Judith more about what a typical Crystalline Consciousness Technique session is like. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you ready to find out how to make a contribution and help others more? Hi, this is Dr. Philip Montrose inviting you to check out our Holistic Coaching and Healing Certification Telecourse program. You'll be studying such profound subjects as discovering your life purpose, manifesting your dreams, relationships and spiritual growth, and vibrant ageless living. Visit us at gettingthrough.org, gettingthru.org, gettingthrough.org, or call us toll-free for an informal chat at 866-304-4325. That's 866-304-4325 about this unique, profound program on holistic coaching and healing. It's a telecourse you can take from phone anywhere, and find out why so many people are finding that this unique program may be one of the most transformational opportunities that you will ever have.
You're listening to AchieveRadio.com. A new drummer for a new awakening.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Hillary Raimo Show, Matters for Mind, Body, and Spirit Talk Radio. Joining me this hour is Judith Hughes, a Reiki practitioner, licensed acupuncturist, and an advanced crystalline consciousness technique practitioner. We're talking about what CCT is and how it relates to energy healing. For more information about Judith's work, you can go to her website, intendhealth.com, and you can also find a link to her website on my website, hillaryraimo.com as well. So welcome back, everybody, and don't forget to stay tuned, because Judith will be giving an example session at the end of the show so you can get a feel for exactly what it is that this very special intentional energy work is all about. So, Judith, before we went to break, we were talking about what a typical session is like when somebody comes to you and has a CCT session done. So what would they expect when they come in? Let's say somebody's coming in, they've never had it before. What would it be like?
Well, when someone comes to me physically, I have them just chat for a few minutes. We chat them up and talk about what their focus is. Sometimes it's health, sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's business. I don't think I made the point before that CCT is not just a healing modality. It's actually applicable to any place in our lives where we would intend. So any kind of any kind of intention around a relationship or business or community. The other unique aspect of CCT is the ability to work with group energies. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we just finished, the CCT teachers just finished doing a 21-day process for the Pacific Coast because the Pacific Coast is being threatened by some, political and possibly polluting things. So we did a process to shift that energy before it happens. So there are many different applications. But to get back to your question, when someone comes to me for a session, I'll have them just talk for a few minutes and then have them lie down on my treatment table, and I sit at their head and hold their head. And at that point, I invoke opening. They go into a very deep, relaxed state. And there are a couple of hand positions that I work my way down the body. The person is fully clothed, and they're just lying there kind of zoning out, becoming comfortable. And then phase 2 is calling in the healing chambers, and that puts them into a deeper, relaxed state. And that takes usually about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, I will have them state their intentions. And then those intentions get anchored in. And then finishing with mastery is a very similar thing. I start at the head and work my way down the body. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. So what a typical session is in person is how long then? About a half an hour?
Oh, usually about 45 minutes. 45
minutes, okay. Mm-hmm. And then when you
Depending
work with somebody,
on how long we talk.
And then when you work with somebody in a distance perspective, is it kind of like how Reiki works with setting the intention to send Reiki or send healing energy? Does the person have to be on the phone with you, or how does that work?
I do that different ways. I prefer it when people are on the phone with me because, well, these people, our listeners are going to have an experience of that soon. We're going to do just a mini session. Usually on the phone I'll do a longer session with people, but it's really nice to be in contact because you really can feel the energy shifting, and it's nice to be able to, it's nice for them to be able to speak to me and tell me what's happening if they want to, or sometimes they want to change their intention. Sometimes being in opening and healing chambers, you get to a deeper intuitive state, and sometimes you want to change your intentions at that point because you really understand on a deeper level what it is that you really want. Or sometimes I'll work with people who have just emailed me their intentions. For example, my cousin just had surgery on her knee, so she just emailed me a list of intentions, and I was able to work with her out of that time frame, out of the, here and now. So it works any old way.
Mm-hmm. So now, for those listening that may, I get asked this question a lot in my own work that I do. What is the difference, and how would you explain this to somebody who asked you, using this particular paradigm of teaching, what is the difference between intention and manipulation? I know a lot of people get those, they kind of get them confused, or they think if you're intending to do something specific, sometimes you're not letting things just be and kind of, go in their own direction. Have you experienced that? Have people asked you that, or been confused by the two words, or have people, or do people just come to you and really understand what that means? When you set your intention to do something, what do you say to those people who maybe have a hard time even just defining what their intention is?
Right. I haven't had any confusion over manipulation, but I have found that sometimes people get confused around intention and goal setting. Being intentional is not setting goals, although your intention could be a goal. I intend to get my taxes done by April 15th. That would be a perfectly valid intention, but intentions go so much deeper and broader than just goal setting. Mm-hmm. And I find that when people are in their head, they'll tend to make, I call them in order to intentions. Like, for example, I intend being a gazillionaire soon. That's a perfectly wonderful intention, right? Uh-huh. I don't have to know how that's going to happen. I just intend it because that's what I want. But a lot of times people are so used to being problem solvers or being in their head that they'll go from their minds and go, well, I really want to be a gazillionaire, but in order to do that, I'm going to have to do blah, blah, blah. So then they'll state their intentions as the blah, blah, blah part. Like that's what they think they have to do in order to. And so intention work to me skips all that intermediary, the shoulds and the have-tos and this is the only way this can happen. And it really opens you up for miracles, because if you intend to be a gazillionaire, guess what? You don't have to know how it happens. You don't have to know. You might not even have to work at it. Who knows? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So there's a distinction between intending from the head, which thinks it knows it has to know how to do something, and intending from the heart that just really just wants.
So would you say to somebody listening maybe that they need to intend something specific, or they need to intend something in a more broader general sense? Like if you want to be a gazillionaire, you put a dollar amount on that, or do you want abundance? I've always told people be specific. If you want to intend something, be specific and then let it go and, feel like you've already accomplished that, and the feeling of already lifting yourself up to that place or finding yourself, believing and feeling matched together that that's already come to fruition, and then just kind of, go with that, has always proved well as far as manifesting things. How does that work in with this technique? Do you suggest people are more specific or more of like a broader sense? Or does it matter?
I suggest both. Sometimes it's really good to be very specific, because sometimes you do want something very specific. And other times you're not sure really what it is specifically, but you know what it feels like. And so that's perfectly valid to just intend that feeling, because we're working with vibration here, right? You go with the highest vibration, the highest vibratory quality. If being specific really makes your heart sing, then that's it. That's the one. And if you can't be specific, but you really have a yearning, however you can describe that to yourself, that will work just as well. And I want to say something about maintaining focus. I know what you're talking about, and I absolutely agree. That's a wonderful, manifesting tool. But with CCT, you don't have to maintain that mental focus. You don't, and it is much more beneficial to remain in a receptive, expectant state, but you don't have to just focus and intend. I remember my friend who used to have affirmations on Post-its all over her house, so that she'd keep focusing on what she wanted. And that's okay, but you know what? It's not necessary with CCT.
Okay, great. Now, how have you taken this program and worked it into your weight loss program that you offer? How have you? Why don't you talk about that and how you came up with that idea?
Okay. Well, I've been an acupuncturist for years, and I think the most requests I've had have been for weight loss. Now, I'm not saying that people came to me for weight loss. Often they would come to me with back pain or knee pain or whatever kind of problems, allergies, this or that, and they'd always sort of jokingly say, oh, and just put a needle in for weight loss. And so it was like, it's almost a joke, you know, but they're serious, but they really want to lose weight, but they just want it to be magic, you know. And so for years I've been really had that on the back burner, and then in the last year or so I've been really focusing on this, and it just finally came together, and I launched my first group started about a month ago. We're finishing up our first month. And what OWN is, it's Optimal Weight Network, and my idea is that our body and weight issues, it's not about willpower, it's not about calories, it's not about exercise. Ultimately, it's about our beliefs and our thoughts and our emotions and our issues. And using Crystalline Consciousness Technique to clear those issues and those beliefs and those thoughts at that energetic level where they reside, I believe will create the possibility to totally shift into being who we want to be with regard to food and body weight and all that. And as I say, we're finishing up our first month. I have people going through a 3-month commitment. That's the first month is opening. This is going to sound familiar. The first month is opening. Second month, healing chambers. Third month, mastery. At the end of the third month, I think we're going to really know what happened, and actually, at the end of the first month, I'm already getting some really good feedback from people. People are loving the program and shedding pounds. It happens to be all a group of people who would like to lose weight, although I believe the same issues relate to people who have the opposite problem. So I'm getting some good feedback, and I'm excited. And essentially what the program is, people email me their intentions, and I've set it up so they email me all through the week, and the cutoff date is Sunday. On Monday, I will do a group Crystalline Consciousness Technique soul chart, or I'll do distant acupuncture, I'll do flower essence, I'll do whatever I'm guided to do with the intentions that people have sent me, and also with intentions I'm guided to put in, and that's the work. And then I will email a newsletter out to each participant and tell them what occurred, and that's basically it. We have a forum where we can get together online and have questions. I post all kinds of information on the forum, drawing on my experience as a natural health care provider, about allergies and addictions, or recipes for cultured vegetables, things like that.
And so how do soul charts help with this program?
Soul charts. We haven't talked about soul charts. Soul charts are the advanced portion of Crystalline Consciousness Technique, and there are several configurations of circles, essentially. People can look them up online and get a better explanation or more involved explanation. Essentially, we're working from the soul's perspective, working with soul's charts. And so there's karma clearing, there's I don't even know what goes on with soul charts. All I know is that whenever I use a soul chart, things happen quickly and powerfully.
Does it involve astrology or anything, or how exactly do you go about determining a soul chart?
Well, the soul charts do have some relationships to astrology, which is way over my head. I'm so not an astrologer. So I just know that I'm working with those energies, but, just like I don't know what's under my hood. I know how to drive the car, kind of a thing. The soul charts do their own work.
So are they channeled? I'm just trying to get an idea of exactly.
So Gia channeled the soul charts. Yes.
Okay.
Gia,
okay.
The original founder. Yes.
And this is something that occurs in a typical CCT session as well as the Optimum Weight Network program that you do?
Yes, sometimes I will work with people using a soul chart. Depending, when people come to me and have their concerns, what they want to work on, it will usually be pretty obvious to me what would be the most effective soul chart or application of CCT to work with them.
Okay. So it's very interesting, actually, how you've taken the CCT technique and moved into kind of like a specialized little segment of, bringing it to fruition through working with people and weight issues. It's pretty interesting, actually. We're going to go to break again, and before we do, I just want to give you Judith's information again. Again, her website is intendhealth.com. And for those of you just joining me, Judith is a Reiki master, licensed acupuncturist, and an advanced crystalline consciousness technique practitioner. And we're talking tonight about CCT and how it works with the power of intention and how it assists in healing. So we're going to come back after break, and she's going to do a kind of like an example session as we close the show tonight. And so stay tuned. And again, if you have questions, we're here for you. Or if you'd like to experience something live on the air, we welcome your calls after the break. And I think also on a closing note before we go to break, I really have always encouraged people to understand the power of our thoughts and the power of our feelings and the power of our intentions when it comes to working for change in our life and dealing with others, whether it's relationships or work or creating whatever it is that we want to create in our life, and how powerful that is, because everything in effect starts as energy and moves on and to become something physical. We'll be right back after this break.
Within you is an unstoppable power. If you want to deepen your relationships, supercharge your productivity, and enjoy more life energy than you've felt in years, then visit letnothingstopyou.org to learn more about Secrets of Being Unstoppable by Guy Finley. This new audio program will give you the knowledge you need to enjoy the happiness and success your heart longs for. That's Guy Finley's Secrets of Being Unstoppable at letnothingstopyou.org.
You may have seen the question in Parade magazine about it. MSN made it one of the top 5 in an article they wrote about it. And journalists around the world are asking, whatever happened to them? What is it that's bringing up all this attention? Well, it's manners, the need for good manners. Publishers Barbara Ross and Nicholas Beatty have brought the quintessential guide to manners for children back into print with their Goop series. You know the Goops. The Goops, they lick their fingers. The Goops, they lick their knives. These wonderful books, originally written by Gillette Burgess over 100 years ago, are now available for a new generation to enjoy and to learn from. Children the world over have loved these classic poems, and now you can own them to share with your children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews. Just go to www.thegoops.com to see the delightful Goops characters, a sample of the whimsical poems that help teach kids good manners by how not to be a Goop, and all the Goops Unlimited books now available. Manners, what a difference they can make. Click on www.thegoops.com today.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Hillary Raimo Show, Matters for Mind, Body, and Spirit Talk Radio. I'm going to read a quote from Mina Parker's new book, Daily Inspirations That Empower and Inspire 365, which is based on the New York Times bestselling book, Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. Make more statements every day about what you want and why. Big things, little things, nonsensical things. The more wants you have and the more you get excited about them, the more dramatically your energy will flow. And I think that ties in nicely to what we're talking about tonight with the power of intention and how you really do have a very strong and powerful essence inside of you to create the kind of life that you want. And, you know, when we look at the world today and we see what's going on and we watch the news and we hear the stories that are going on and we're just constantly bombarded with this massive, you know, fear-based information that flows daily, you know, it's really hard to sit back sometimes and think about the positive and the wonderful things that we have. And we have to remember gratitude in the power of intention, I think, and to be grateful for the things that we do have and to treat them with a kind of respect and you know, without getting too attached to them, but understanding that we do directly draw into our lives the experiences that we have by the thoughts that we have, by the feelings that we have, because everything is energy, and most people understand that even at a basic level, everything is energy. So when we work with intention, it pulls in the energy in kind of like a specific way, and I'm probably not explaining it very well, but it works. And so we just have to understand that we are very powerful beings, and I guess that's my point. That's the message I'm trying to get out right now, is that, you know, each and every one of you listening right now has a very powerful being inside of you that is you, is your higher self. And when you learn to connect to that higher self, miracles begin to happen in your life. Things change. Relationships change. Your experiences shift. More money comes into your life because you become like a magnet and you draw it in. So again, I'm talking with Judith Hughes. As we head into the close of our hour, she works with a process called Crystalline Consciousness Technique, and CCT is working with the power of intention, calling upon light, sound, sacred geometry, and the unifying force of intention to work at the most subtle energy levels, where actually transformation occurs, because that's where the realms of thought and the realms of emotion work. So Judith, I have a question for you. Now, before we get into working with the example session, how is this different than Reiki?
Ooh, good question. Reiki is channeling healing energy. The universal healing energy comes through the practitioner and through the practitioner into the patient, into the client, or into the situation, or for protection, whatever your use is. You're literally drawing that energy through you. Crystalline Consciousness Technique is different. When I'm working with a patient, I'm not channeling any energy. I'm actually hooking that person up to their own source healing energy. So I'm not in the equation. So that provides a level of protection for the practitioner and the client. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as different applications, Crystalline Consciousness has applications beyond the scope of Reiki. Mm-hmm. Applications with groups, applications with business, etc.
So can you combine the two modalities by any chance?
Yes, in fact, I just did yesterday. I described earlier how I do an acupuncture session. I do the same thing. I start out with CCT, and at the point of intention, do the Reiki treatment.
Okay, and I've been dying to ask you this question also, the distant acupuncture. How do you tie that all in? How do I tie it in? I'm not sure I understand the question. Well, I mean, how do you do? First of all, how do you do distant acupuncture? I mean, I don't know.
Oh, as intention. Here's what happened. I was so lucky. My son and daughter-in-law had my grandson here at my house, and that was about a year ago. And I had planned on doing acupressure for my daughter-in-law while she was in labor, and as it turns out, she was kind of like me. She didn't want me touching her while she was in labor. She didn't say so, but I could just tell. And so the entire birth was done at the point of intention in a CCT session, which is, by the way, the first human being on the planet born at the point of intention. And so I was just sitting there wondering what to do, and I thought, well, okay, if I could touch her, these are the points I would be using, and so I just intended them. And I intended, she was in labor for quite a long time, and I intended large intestine 4, which is they call it the Pitocin point. In China, they use it instead of Pitocin. And her water broke, and the baby's head became engaged, literally the next contraction. I thought, ooh, that was cool. And then the midwives wanted to rush her off to the hospital because there was meconium in the fluid. I'm an hour and a half from the hospital. I said, oh, this is not good. So I intended spleen 6, which opens the cervix. And that baby was born in 10 minutes, I swear. So that was how I knew that this worked. So then I played around with some energetically sensitive people and said, listen, I want to try this thing on you to see if it works. And they could tell that because they were also, they knew what acupuncture felt like, they could tell that it was working. So I work with people over the phone or over long distance, and I'll do distant acupuncture sessions in that way.
Wow, that's really incredible, actually. You know, it reminds me of the power of thought, too, you know, how and visualization, it really ties in a lot of different wonderful things that people are doing nowadays, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about the power of thought and the power of intention and the power of our imagination. We have about 7 minutes left. We have about 7 minutes left in the show, and why don't we go ahead and do the example mini session that we were talking about in the beginning of the show. So go ahead.
Okay, well, everybody, think of an intention. You've got 5 seconds. So whatever pops into your head, that's the one. As long as it's only for you in this context, you're just going to intend for yourself. And think it or speak it in the positive. If you have a headache, you're not going to say, I don't want to have a headache anymore. Say, I want to feel fabulous. Something simple, or something that you'll notice when it shifts. And you will notice energy shifting. I'm going to be speaking out loud. There's also going to be a little silence. And in the silence, just pay attention and see what things feel like. And my intention is that this is for each individual, not the group. I invoke opening at each individual's head, heart, waist, solar plexus, and low belly and feet. I ask to invoke the appropriate healing chamber for each individual at the head, heart, waist, solar plexus, and low belly and feet. I ask to anchor in each person's individual intention. I invoke mastery at the navel, feet, and crown. As it is intended, so it is.
Wow, that was really something. You know, it's so simple, and yet it's so powerful. I think that's what really gets me, because even when we spoke earlier today, and it was really just kind of quick like that we just did, and you could feel kind of a heat or a movement in your chakras, and I think that was really incredible. But I work with Reiki too, so you know, maybe it's different. Everybody will experience something different, but I could definitely feel it. Thank you so much, Judith. That was really wonderful. I hope everybody out there enjoyed it. Again, let me just let you know where you can find Judith at intendhealth.com. intend.com. That's INTEND, health.com. You also can find her link on my website at hillaryraimo.com. And Judith does acupuncture, Reiki, and Crystalline Consciousness Technique. And if you're interested in more information, Judith, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
My email is jhughes, HUGHES, at intendhealth.com. My telephone number is 707-882-2855.
Okay, so you heard it, folks. If you want to get a hold of Judith and you have more questions about anything that we talked about tonight, you can reach her at 707-882-2855. And I encourage you to maybe go back into the archive of this show and listen to it again and, really explore for yourself what we've talked about tonight and, experience the session once again. I think it's something well worth your time and effort to do. So once again, thank you, Judith, so much for joining. It was great. It was great to meet you in San Francisco at the show, and I'm really glad we were able to get you on the show and continue shining that light in the world. You're doing fantastic stuff.
Well, thank you, Hillary. You too. Thank you so much. It was fun.
So I'm going to go ahead and thank, I wanted to read one more quote here, and I thought this was really kind of neat. It says, quit trying to find yourself. Begin instead to allow yourself. A grand life is your right. You are your life. Therefore, you are your right. That's from Mina Parker's new book, 365 Days. Daily inspirations that empower and inspire. So everybody, I would like to invite you to join me for our show next week. I will be bringing on Dr. Chet Snow to talk about crop circles. There's a fabulous crop circle that's already begun in England. The 2009 season has already begun, and he's going to come on next week to talk about, he has an upcoming trip to England this summer. He's going to be talking about the crop circle phenomenon, how it relates to 2012, and it's really great. I brought Chet on last year, and everybody really enjoyed his show, so I encourage you to join me next week for a live show with Dr. Chet Snow. And I also wanted to announce that next month, May, is our very first year anniversary, and we're going to have some really great authors on, and they have all given me a signed copy of their books for listeners. We're going to be doing a promotional thing to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of this radio show. So if you'd like more information, I encourage you to go on my website and sign up for my newsletter, because there will be some information about some upcoming contests and how to win a signed copy of the books that are coming on. I have Josh Barron coming on. I have Robert Friedman, who's the president of Hampton Roads Publishing, who co-authored a child's book with Eckhart Tolle. He's going to be talking about his work with Eckhart, and he's giving away a free autographed signed book. And so there's going to be a lot of great things going on. I am also going to be giving away 2 one-hour phone sessions, phone readings. So there's a lot of free giveaways coming up and exciting things. So I encourage you to sign up on the newsletter so you'll know about that. And you can check my website for updates. So everybody, it's been a great show. I appreciate all of you, and it's my intention to have another full year of radio and to be here with each of you, bringing different guests on and people who really work hard to walk their talk in the world and shine their light brightly and give their message out to people, even if it's one by one, and raise the vibration of this planet so that we can actually move into a better, higher, healing space and become better people. And then our families become better and our planet becomes better. So it's a ripple effect. And I hope to be a part of that by helping bring a platform to the world where people can do that. So it's been great. Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Judith, for joining me tonight. She's fabulous. Her work is fabulous. And I highly encourage all of you to check it out more. I'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Be well. Namaste.